been walking through seasons that seemed to forget your name, serving faithfully, while others were seen celebrated and chosen. You've poured your heart into places that couldn't recognize your worth, and yet you stayed obedient. But the time of hiddenness has reached its end. God is announcing a relocation, an elevation that moves you from the background to the forefront. The stage is shifting, and you're stepping into the realm where your value is visible, your influence undeniable, and your purpose unstoppable. This is not a coincidence. It's divine alignment unfolding right on time. Every great move of God begins in obscurity. Before David was anointed before Israel, he was appointed in the field. In 1 Samuel 16 verse 12 to 13, the young shepherd nobody noticed became the king everyone would follow. That's the rhythm of destiny God hides before he highlights. You've been in training while unseen, being refined while misunderstood. But the same hand that anointed David in private is preparing to reveal you in public. What felt like a delay was actually the discipline required to carry greatness. You weren't forgotten, you were being formed. Isaiah 43 verse 19 declares, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" The transition begins the moment you recognize the shift. God never moves you without first maturing you. The hidden season was not wasted, it was divine conditioning for recognition. You've outgrown your old environment, and the Lord is rearranging circumstances to place you where your assignment can flourish. This isn't about ambition, it's about alignment. When growth meets timing, relocation becomes inevitable. Sometimes God hides his chosen ones to protect what he's preparing. The silence was strategy. The closed doors were preservation. Had you been exposed too early, the weight of recognition would have crushed the roots of your character. But through the quiet, he taught you how to stand without applause, how to remain steady without validation, and how to trust him without evidence. The lessons learned in obscurity are the foundation of longevity and visibility. When the spotlight arrives, your stability will sustain it. Psalm 75 verse 6 to 7 reminds us that promotion doesn't come from the east or west, but from the Lord. No human hand can hold back what God is ready to release. You don't need to network your way into purpose. He's positioning you by grace, not politics. What once ignored you will soon require you. The very systems that shut you out will seek your voice. God moves his own when the environment no longer matches their capacity. You're not losing anything, you're being guided to where you truly belong. This shift won't be gradual, it will be sudden. One moment it will feel like everything is still the same. The next, the call will come, the door will open, the opportunity will unfold. It will seem instant, but it's been building for years. Every quiet prayer, every unseen act of obedience, every seed of faithfulness has created this moment. God promotes not by chance, but by design. You've been prepared for visibility through seasons that taught you humility. Recognition follows refinement, and your readiness has reached fulfillment. You're stepping into a place where your preparation will meet purpose. The grace that carried you through isolation is ushering you into manifestation. This is your relocation season, not just in position, but in perception. You're being seen differently because you've been shaped differently. God is calling your name in rooms you've never entered before, people you've never met for assignments beyond what you imagined. The waiting has ended. The unveiling has begun. The move isn't next, it's happening right here, right now. You see, before the spotlight, there's always the silence. Before recognition, there's refinement. Every great unveiling begins with a season of concealment, and yours has been no different. You've walked through corridors where your name wasn't called, where your efforts seemed unseen, and where your prayers echoed back with no reply. Yet in those very moments, God was shaping you. Hidden seasons are never wasted. They are the sacred intervals where character is carved and calling is confirmed. Just as Luke 1 verse 80 describes John growing strong in the wilderness, until the day of his revealing, you've been growing in the quiet fields of preparation, far from the noise of public applause. The hidden season wasn't punishment, it was protection. When God treasures something, He shields it until the appointed time. You weren't overlooked, you were preserved. There were things that could have contaminated your purpose, so God separated you from certain places and people. What felt like isolation was actually insulation. He hid you until your roots grew deep enough to sustain the fruit He was about to bring forth. You thought you were being delayed, but you were being developed. Obscurity has always been the workshop of greatness. David tended sheep while being trained to lead a nation. Joseph served in prison before ruling in a palace. Esther lived unnoticed before she became the voice that saved her people. In those quiet years, their potential was being polished by unseen hands. The same has been true for you. Every silent battle, every private tear, and every unseen act of obedience became the scaffolding for your elevation. Psalm 27 verse 14 reminds you to wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. Waiting wasn't a pause in your destiny, it was part of it. In the shadows, God refined your discernment. You learned how to hear Him beyond the noise of validation. You learned to move by conviction, not by applause. He trained your spirit to recognize His voice, not human approval. The silence became your sanctuary, and solitude became your seminary. You were not buried, you were planted. The difference is perspective. One ends in decay, the other begins in growth. While others assumed you were forgotten, God saw a seed about to emerge. Every hidden moment built a credibility that can't be fabricated. Public elevation requires private integrity, and God was ensuring your roots could bear the weight of recognition. Heaven doesn't promote potential, it promotes the proven. Job 23 verse 10 declares, "When He has tested me, I shall come forth as gold." You've been tested, purified, and trusted. What you endured in silence prepared you for the sound of your calling. The world might not have noticed your diligence, but God recorded every detail. While others advanced through visibility, you advanced through obedience. You kept serving when no one thanked you. You kept believing when the evidence was scarce. You kept building when the results were invisible. That persistence didn't go unnoticed. It became the fragrance of your faithfulness. The unseen work is what heaven honors most. When no one else clapped, God was applauding your endurance. What appeared as delay was divine design. Each unrecognized effort became a rehearsal for revelation. Every hidden trial strengthened your humility, ensuring that recognition wouldn't corrupt what God has refined. The world measures progress by visibility, but God measures readiness by obedience. You were being conditioned for credibility, molded for mastery, and trained for trustworthiness. The silence wasn't a setback, it was strategy. Your hidden season built more than skill, it built substance, the kind that doesn't crumble under pressure or fade under praise. You've been through enough obscurity to understand that true promotion isn't granted by people, it's authorized by God. When He decides it's time, no gatekeeper can block your entrance, no system can silence your name, and no delay can hinder your release. The field that once held you in anonymity will soon testify of your authenticity. You've been unseen but not unknown. Every prayer, every sacrifice, every moment of stillness has been seen by the one who writes destinies in secret. Heaven has prepared your unveiling not because you forced it, but because you were faithful when it was quiet. The silence was your schooling, and the hidden season was your preparation for recognition that's closer than you think. What's falling apart isn't failure, it's relocation in disguise. When God begins to move you, the first sign isn't always open doors, sometimes it's closed ones. The familiar starts to crumble. Conversations lose their meaning and connections that once fueled you begin to fade. It feels unsettling, but in truth, it's sacred surgery. Divine relocation always begins with divine disconnection. Before God can reveal your next place, He must remove what has anchored you to the last one. Genesis 12 verse 1 reminds us how God called Abram to leave his country, his people and his father's household, not to punish him, but to position him for promise. You've prayed for expansion, and God answered by breaking the boundaries that kept you small. Comfort and calling cannot coexist for long. When God begins to elevate, He shakes what you've outgrown. The job that once fulfilled you starts feeling restrictive. The environment that once affirmed you starts feeling foreign. What used to fit suddenly becomes too tight for who you're becoming. God removes comfort to reveal calling because growth demands movement and movement demands release. You can't be transformed and remain tethered to the same terrain. Relationships may shift, not because something went wrong, but because your assignment evolved. There are people who were essential for your last chapter, but incompatible with your next one. When your purpose expands, alignment becomes sacred. It's not betrayal to move forward, it's obedience. God is intentional about who walks with you into destiny. Some connections were seasonal scaffolding, useful for building, but not meant to remain once the structure was complete. Philippians 3 verse 13 to 14 urges you to forget what is behind and strain toward what is ahead. That strain isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. It's the stretching required to step into unfamiliar greatness. Old systems often collapse under the weight of a new assignment. What used to sustain you begins to suffocate you because old atmospheres can't handle new oil. You can't pour what's been freshly prepared into containers that refuse to expand. God closes doors that cannot handle your next dimension, not out of cruelty, but care. He knows that exposure without foundation leads to failure, so He prunes before He promotes. The shaking you're feeling isn't destruction, it's distinction. God is separating what's divine from what's merely familiar, ensuring that nothing unstable follows you into your next level. You may feel the pull between where you've been and where you're going. That tension is holy. It's the space where faith is refined and dependence deepens. You're not being rejected, you're being redirected. The discomfort is confirmation that relocation is underway. 2 Corinthians 6 verse 17 calls us to come out from among them and be separate, not to isolate ourselves, but to consecrate ourselves. There's a difference between isolation and elevation. One comes from fear, the other from obedience. God isn't pushing you away from people, He's pulling you closer to purpose. Every divine relocation begins with a breaking. Something must shatter, so something greater can form. You might feel like everything around you is unraveling, but in truth, you're being unraveled from what no longer aligns. The friendships, the habits, the patterns, all of it is being refined in fire. What's falling apart isn't your life, it's your limits. God is stripping away the unnecessary so that what's essential can emerge. He's not trying to make you comfortable, He's making you capable. Letting go is the hardest part of obedience. It means releasing what once made sense for the sake of what's still unseen. Yet obedience is always the doorway to overflow. The same God who told Abram to leave everything familiar is the same God designing a greater territory for you. What He breaks, He never leaves in pieces. What He separates, He sanctifies. Separation protects your sanctification because compromise can't coexist with calling. You're not losing. You're transitioning into a space where purpose breathes freely again. God's breaking isn't rejection, it's redirection. The shift begins not when the new appears, but when you release the old. What you're feeling isn't an ending, it's a commissioning. Everything changing around you is aligning to confirm what's growing within you. You're not being displaced. You're being strategically positioned for the recognition that's waiting on the other side of surrender. Beloved, you're not chasing exposure. God is preparing your unveiling. Every moment you thought was unnoticed was actually recorded in the unseen. Your tears, sacrifices, and obedience were never wasted. When 1 Peter 5 verse 6 says, "Humble yourselves under God's mighty hand that he may lift you up in due time," it isn't a suggestion, it's a timeline. The same hand that hid you will be the one that reveals you. Promotion is not a product of popularity, it's the result of divine timing meeting proven character. What's coming isn't random, it's appointed. What the world calls sudden, God calls scheduled. You are not stepping into success by chance, you are stepping into prophecy fulfilled. The realm of recognition is not earned through striving, it's unlocked through surrender. God has always been the orchestrator of your visibility. He decides when to bring your name to remembrance, just like he did for Joseph before Pharaoh. When your purpose aligns with your preparation, no gate can stay closed. Matthew 6 verse 4 reminds us that your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you openly. You served in silence. Now he's about to showcase your faithfulness. Every divine unveiling begins with a divine appointment. God doesn't rush exposure, he readies vessels. Visibility without foundation creates collapse, but visibility after refinement creates legacy. The stage God is preparing for you isn't built by hands, it's sustained by his will.